Right?
Hi.
It's the best and worst.
So, first of all, I need to thank Craig Martelle and Michael Anderley for inviting me to speak not once but twice at 20Books. This is a new presentation that you are all the guinea pigs for. And it's one that Craig reached out to me about and said, would you be interested in speaking about this? And I said, not only would I be interested, I would love to, because this is actually going to be my next nonfiction book. It is an area of concern to me as both an independent author and an entertainment attorney, because I often see the downside of not knowing where all your rights are or who you've granted them to. So with that in mind, how to make your books make more without hurting your IP rights. So my tentative title, being the pirate sailor mouth, was how to make your books make more without effing up your IP rights, because that's where my mind goes to, but one of my more diplomatic colleagues suggested this title instead. So, if you were with me yesterday, you saw this. This is a legal disclaimer, which I present in every presentation. As you guys know, I'm an entertainment attorney as well as an indie author. If I'm your entertainment attorney, I am not giving you any advice up here today. If I am not your entertainment attorney, I am not giving you any advice that is legal up here today. I'm just giving you the benefit of kind of my overview in the industry as to how rights interrelate. This is a very great picture of me. They did such a good job on that, didn't they? I almost look like I had a facelift. I love this picture. I'm gonna wait to 65. Before I would consider that. So anyway, I am now closer to 40 books. A few of them are under a pen name, and one of them was a ghostwritten project for a celebrity. But this is about me. I've been in the entertainment industry for 22 years now, and I was drugged back kicking and screaming after I had left agenting at ICM, where I was an agent for books to film and TV in subsidiary rights, and then I also worked with screenplay writers and directors. And then what happened is that all of my friends that are authors discovered that I had done that in a former career in life, and they asked me to continue to do so. And who am I to say no? Not me. So, as an independent, so I'm gonna start, I don't know how long this is, so if I rush it, we'll have lots of times for questions. If I go too long, I have a nice person who is going to let me know when we have 10 minutes left. As an independent author, you are a creator and an entrepreneur. I'm sure you guys all know that. Some of us lean one direction more than the other, but regardless, if you are here in this indie book publishing game, you have to be both. It's really important. So what I want to talk about is, as an indie book author, you may have one, you may have 150, you may have 200 titles in your backlist. But the whole goal is to take this and turn it into this, right? Because you spend hours and hours and hours, days and days, months, writing the books. And then you want to try to find a way to monetize the books. So how do you get all the money you can from your books? You squeeze out every single penny that you can from your books. And what does that look like as an indie author? You exploit all of your rights. So these are some of the rights that you have the ability to exploit as an independent author. You have your publishing rights, which most indie authors are exploiting on their own. Although there is this idea of portfolio diversification, which is, in my opinion, one of the reasons you might consider a trad book deal, and I can get into that a little bit later. Your film rights, your TV rights, your audio rights, your comic book rights, your translation rights, your gaming rights, both desktop and mobile, your app rights, and your merchandising rights. I don't think this list is everything, because it feels like there's always something new coming across my desk. As IP creators, you are on the front lines of hearing about a new way to exploit your rights to the characters and the intellectual property that you have written. So I am quite sure that someday I will hear about the ability to put a chip in somebody's head that one of you have been approached about because they want to upload your entire backlist or catalog into it. So I like to discuss rights this way, because what I have discovered is that I sometimes forget everything that I know, and I know some of you probably know all of the things I'm going to say today, and if so, feel free to go watch something else. But I want to go over the basics. So I think of your book as a seed when it comes to the rights that you create when you write a book. And once you get done writing your book, you have this beautiful, gorgeous tree. And the reason I like this metaphor, analogy, whatever you want to call it, I should know what I don't, is that every single branch of this tree, if the tree itself is your book, every branch is a right you can exploit from that book. Does that help visualize it a little bit? Because what you can do is you can cut from that tree a branch that has to do with audio rights. You can cut from that tree a branch that has to do with traditional publishing, a branch that has to do with ebook, one that has to do with, did I say translation? One that has to do with film. You can even bifurcate your film and TV rights where you sell someone the right to make a documentary, and for whatever reason, I can't imagine, maybe if you're a memoirist, and also then keep separate the right to still exploit film and TV as scripted or fictionalized. So I think it's really important to understand that, because in some of my conversations with authors, and keep in mind, I know that authors are always the smartest people in the room, right? Like if publishers and film executives could come up with the things that authors come up with, they would, right? Let's just be honest. So writers are the smartest people in the room, but what I've discovered is that not everybody has quite got the concept that from one book comes every potential to exploit a myriad of rights. And my concern as an entertainment attorney and a publishing attorney who works with authors is that not only are some authors haven't quite grasped that, but they are conveying conflicting rights to different entities, which leaves them vulnerable to a lawsuit. Worst case, a lawsuit. Best case, which sounds horrible, you've conveyed your film and TV rights to an app out of China who doesn't even make film and TV, and then Netflix calls you next week. That's the worst case scenario. Because now you are leveraged against a small app company out of China who controls those rights, and we've got to find a way to get those rights away from them. Yeah. So that being said, this is why it becomes really important, and it becomes even more challenging because as your backlist becomes more robust, you're managing a lot of things, right? You're managing the rights, you're managing the contracts, you're managing all of it. It is worth the time because, let's go back to what we're after. It can be worth the time, right? All right. So, how do you exploit your rights without turning it into this? So that is my primary concern, is that you, us, anyone, as someone who has a lot of rights to both exploit and to maintain and to keep track of, can turn it into this tangled mess that a couple bits of prevention could hopefully prevent. These are 3 ways that I think will be helpful to you. So the first one is to paper your deals. And when I say paper, I mean write something up. And you don't have to come to someone like me, right? You can write something up. Okay. So when a corporation comes to you with an agreement, please always remember that that agreement is in the best interest of the corporation. It's always most favorable to that corporation. They have an army of people like me who draft those agreements so that they are helpful to that corporation. So whether it's me or someone like me, at least have someone else who understands some of that language take a look at it. And we're going to get into that when we go back to something like this to try to prevent that from happening, especially in the grants clauses that are in your deal memos. So, but one of the things that also is important, and this is a little bit of a different topic, but I'm going to just speak to it because it recently came up in my practice. a lot of authors are starting to co-write with other authors, and best case scenario, it's never a problem. Worst case scenario is like getting in a huge fight with your sister and never speaking to her again for the rest of your life, right? So I would argue that if you can at least put down in that agreement what it's going to look like as far as how you share profits, who's going to do the work, and the number one reason to do contracts is when everything goes south, it tells exactly how you guys are going to extricate yourselves from this relationship and who's going to own the books. Because here's a little secret that not many authors know. If you are a joint copyright holder with someone else, did you know that they can sell or license any of the ancillary or subsidiary rights without your permission? They don't even have to tell you. Right? Now, I can tell you that if you're a joint copyright holder, and they do that and don't tell you, you're still entitled to your 50% of those profits and proceeds. But you got to know that they did it. So one of the things that in an agreement you might want to do with a joint copyright holder is add, this is not legal advice, is add something in the lines of, neither one of us will convey any of the ancillary rights without the written permission of the other. So at least you're going to get notice, right? So keep track of your deals. This is shockingly easy and yet shockingly difficult for most authors. And I think it's an organization component. I've got a little thing, when you see it you might laugh, but keep track of your deals. Know who you've made the deal with. Know who the point of contact is on the deal. That's really frustrating, right? When you know that a deal is expiring and the person that you're supposed to be in contact with left it's like 3 people before, and you don't even know who you can get a hold of. That can be tremendously frustrating. Keep track, so know what you conveyed, who you conveyed it to, when the license will expire, all of that information. And be aware of the rights grant in your deals. This is, without a doubt, the most important part of it. For me, I would say that the rights grant language is usually in one paragraph of every deal, and you really need to read it. And think to yourself, okay, so if I'm going to do an audio deal with this company, why do they want my comic book rights? And do they really need them? I think not. Unless they can tell me a good reason why they want them, or they're going to pay me a whole lot more money so that they can have them. Right? So when you see your grant of rights clause, if you're not working with someone like me, you can, I call it redlining, but it's redacting, and you guys, it's track changes. You can track change and strike through the things that you don't want in the rights grant, and when you send it back to the other side, they will tell you, here's something else that's really interesting. As authors, I feel like we spend so much time getting people to want our work that when something comes in, sometimes I'm really good at negotiating for other people, not so great at negotiating for myself. How's that? And I feel like I'm not the only person in the world that's like that. So do not be afraid that if you go back with a document that has all these track changes, that they're just going to walk away. Worst case scenario, they're going to say, we don't negotiate this template agreement. And you'll say, okay, well, you'll think about it. Do I want to accept it? Do I not? And that goes for money too. Right? You always want to go back and ask for more. I'm sure, I think you guys heard the story yesterday about the 50,000 versus the $500,000.
No.
Oh. Yeah. I'll get into that. I don't know how long this is. Let me see how long ago. No, I know, but I don't know how long this is. Because this is new. Yeah. So papering your deals, that's making a contract or an agreement, something in writing that has the specifics. So you would want to have what you're giving someone, how long they're getting it for, what they're going to pay you for, how much they're going to pay you. Is it a license? Preferably, you don't want to sell your rights, right? Unless it's film or TV, then they're going to buy them. You're not going to license those. So you want to paper your deals. I saw something recently where somebody reached out to an author and said, I'm going to create an LLC so that we can have a film company, and you're going to convey all of your books into the jointly held LLC.
Oh my God.
I kid you not. That being said, at that point, one of the parties reached out to me, and I'm always open to a new and interesting business model, and I tend to want to like walk through it in my head, and I thought, I can see no benefit to the author in this. Unless it was Steven Spielberg, then I might say that there's a benefit to the author, and even then I would want some kind of safeguards than just conveying all right title and interest to my books to Steven Spielberg, right? I want some guarantees there. So that being said, please read the deals that are presented to you. Please paper your deals. Have someone take a look at them. Contracts. It's a scary thing, I know, but you guys are business people and you're entrepreneurs. And there are some great books out there. You don't have to be an attorney to be able to have kind of a basic contract or agreement between parties. I think it's wise, but I'm biased. So, keeping track of your deals. Right? So simple, and yet so hard. So simple, and yet so hard. So the slide earlier where I mentioned that there were like 8 to 10 ways that you could possibly exploit and monetize your rights. You know, you could make one of these per book, or you can make one of these per right. However you do it, everybody's brain is a little bit different. And so let's just go, because of my brain, let's just go per book. You make a spreadsheet per book, you list the different rights. Across the top, you list who it was conveyed to, what was conveyed, the date the contract was signed, the date the contract is to expire, the date that you're supposed to get paid, were you paid, yes or no, and then you need to follow up with that, because as we know, different contracts payment is in different ways. One of the things that can be really challenging, I think, with doing business with Asia is that unlike, here where we just get paid, the money drops, oftentimes Asian companies, one of their business models is that you have to send the invoice and then they will pay you. And I have, try as I have to get that taken out of deal agreements, I have had no, deal memos, I've had no success. They really want the invoice as a triggering event for them to make payment. Okay, so elements to track. What rights did you grant? To whom did you grant those rights? For how long did you grant the rights? And how and when do you get paid? These are the most important things, right? And then the other thing, as I mentioned before, is that you guys probably are fully aware that most deals that you'll enter into are licensing deals. Licensing means that you're licensing to another individual or corporate entity the ability to monetize one of your subsidiary derivative or ancillary rights. Basically, the picture of the tree, you're licensing to the other entity the right to take that branch and utilize it for the term of the license. When the license expires, that branch will be returned to you. Does that help? The other thing is that if you sell it to them, then you're never getting it back. Right? And I would also say that in agreements, you might want to look out for the words perpetuity. The word perpetuity, right? So the reason I put this up here is that for most authors, these are kind of the big ticket items, or at least that's been my experience with my clients. This is what most authors are looking for, to see their projects on screen. So my biggest concern when dealing with the rights challenge is, as I mentioned before, the hypothet that you have conveyed through either a license or a sale to a very small entity that doesn't do any of these things. They don't make film or television, but the rights grant paragraph took your film and television rights, and you have now granted them to an audiobook company or an app company or even a publishing company if they don't have a record of exploiting film and TV rights, right? Like if they have a record of actually getting things made, then that could work. But if they don't have a record of getting things made, then maybe it's not a good idea. It kind of depends. So say you have conveyed, you've licensed your film and TV rights in the rights grant, maybe you didn't see it, you didn't read it, you're not alone. A lot of authors don't read their deals. So you have conveyed your film and TV rights to, let's just say, a webcomic company in Singapore. And you have conveyed your film, TV rights Or they have said something like, if we create a moving action comic, we now own it.
Yeah.
That's the worst case scenario. I've seen that before. And then Netflix calls you up and says, we would like to purchase your film and TV rights. Not only would we like to purchase it, but George Clooney would like to star in it. And we're ready to go. We actually have a screenplay writer. Issa Rae's gonna star opposite George. We're good to go. So we're gonna send you your barrel of money. You just have to sign this agreement. And then what happens is there is a chain of title problem because you have already conveyed those film and TV rights to the small comic company out of Singapore. So now you're freaking out because your barrel of money will not arrive and George Clooney will not be stuck in an elevator with you anywhere. And so you're gonna have to figure out how you can get those rights back. And I can tell you from some experience that when a corporate entity discovers that they have leverage over you, very rarely do they just say, okay, you can have your rights back, right? So you have conveyed your rights to a small webcomic company out of Singapore, and you or someone like me reaches out to them and says, we would like a release of those rights. That's how it would start. We would like a release of these rights. Maybe they don't ask why. Maybe they say, okay, here is the release language, we've signed it, it's back to you now. Most likely they say, why would you like a release of your rights? I would argue at that time, you're required to let them know why. So you have to say, well, George Clooney is going to make a movie and Netflix is going to give me a big bucket of money. And they say, but we control those rights. So why wouldn't the big bucket of money come to us? Do you see the conundrum? And so then you're back to that big, horrible mess of yarn. So this is why I say to you, if you would, at the very least, really understand which rights you're conveying when you enter into an agreement. And I would assert that most authors want to retain the film and TV rights, film, TV, merchandising, and then live, why am I blanking on it? It's not live action, it's, and the other thing that has become very popular is podcast, fictional podcast, because some people are now utilizing, because it's so expensive to do a film or TV show, they're doing fictionalized podcast, scripted podcast, as a proof of concept to then move into episodic TV. I've been seeing those deals a lot too. Because you can kind of get into a podcast at a very low point of capital outlay that is not available to you with scripted film or TV. Okay. So are you licensing a right or selling a right? If you're licensing a right, then you're going to get that right back eventually, in theory. So I want to go back to I mentioned something about why you might consider doing a traditional publishing deal. Hiss, boo. No. So one of the reasons that I've seen lately is that I have a number of clients who have an incredibly robust backlist, and they have an incredible author business. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say that they're making 7 figures a year, which I think is everyone's dream as a writer. So, but what they have discovered is that there is still, in my opinion, there is only one area in which trad publishing still has kind of a chokehold, is that the right word? A chokehold on our industry, and that is paperback distribution, right? That's still one of the places where we've not successfully chipped away. Not to say that we won't, we can't, but it's not quite the same yet. So there are clients that I have that maybe had trad deals 10 years ago that will circle back and say, I'm gonna do a trad deal. And my first question is why? Because I don't know if any of you have taken Becca Syme's class, but I'm number 1 futuristic and number 2 strategic. So the first question is, why are you gonna do a trad deal? And if the response is to diversify my intellectual property portfolio and to gather up more readers than I have right now, I think that's fantastic. I do have a few challenges, although I'm being a little judgy, with so that I can slay the inner demons about being snubbed by traditional publishing and don't cry my river of tears. There are reasons to do things, right? Like I totally get it, but I feel like we're business people. Because a few of the things that I say to people when they want to enter into a trad deal is you have to think of it as though you have a child that's been abducted that you will never get back. Right? So if you're doing it to diversify your intellectual property portfolio and possibly get other readers that you can't reach, makes perfect sense. If you understand that those 3 books in that series that they're going to pay you $1 million for are never coming home to you, makes perfect sense. If you're willing to sit with the mental anguish of watching them not, this is a hypothet, watching the traditional publishers not successfully promote or market those 3 books that are your abandoned children, then you're in a good space. Because these are the arguments or the challenges that I hear from authors all the time when they enter into a trad deal after they've had a really successful independent author business. Nobody can market books like you guys can. I know that there are some independent authors that think that New York has this incredible marketing machine behind them. I gotta tell you, more and more of my clients, they get off the meetings with their editors and they're like, you're not gonna believe what they asked me. What did they ask you? I'll probably believe it. They asked me how I would market my book. I should have a picture. Another metaphor I like to use is traditional publishing is a big tanker ship. Did anybody see Top Gun Maverick or Top Gun? You know, the big tanker ship that has all the airplanes? Traditional publishing is not even as swanky as that. It's a big tanker that you see out in the ocean before they unload at Long Beach, right? Filled with those box containers. And indie publishing is a speedboat. We are speedboats that can pivot and turn based on what the market wants. There's probably one of you in here that can write a book in 7 days, right? If you had to. And you could throw that thing up, you could see where the trends are going, and you could throw that thing up and you've got like a money maker. So trad can't do that. And I've got to tell you that one of the last places that they have kind of a chokehold is the fact that they can do paperback distribution in a more effective way than we can yet. So it makes sense to me. And the other thing that makes sense is that a lot of authors with that really robust backlist are starting to feel really fatigued. And they're feeling really fatigued because of this. If you've got 150 books and you've got one of these for each of the 150 books and you've had to drop all the information in there and you've got to keep track of all of it, it can start to feel a little bit fatiguing in your mind. I get it. But you can also train a virtual assistant to do that and ping you about those things, right? It's a business, and I think one of the things is that we oftentimes resist treating it like a business. That being said, I think I lost my train of thought. So trad, if they're offering you 7 figures and you can deal with all of those things, it makes perfect sense to me, right? And even if less. Because one of the things is that no matter how hard I've tried, the reversion language keeps leaning towards the publishing house, and it becomes really hard to get those rights back. There is, of course, this idea, and occasionally they will agree to give you back your books, or they'll let you buy back your books. You know, sometimes you can buy back your rights, because some independent authors, imagine this, get so frustrated with the books sitting there knowing that if they recovered them, or if they sent them out, or if they did any sort of advertising, they could make $1 million, and yet they sit there at the bottom of the Amazon rank, and the publisher is doing nothing. And so I sometimes get those calls where they're like, can I just buy my books back? I don't know, we'll try. We'll try. So licensing or selling a right. You do not license film and TV generally to those places. They buy your film and TV rights. You will receive an episodic royalty. These are all things that are negotiated in agreements. You will also get the right to participate in prequels, sequels, remakes, all of that. Anyone who does my job in film or TV should know how to negotiate those deals. I would assert, because I heard something once at a conference recently, not recently, I think it was like, time is weird, there's the before times and the after times. It was in the after times, but it was, like a year ago, I was at a conference. There was somebody there that I really very much like, who was walking beside me, and she said, oh Maggie, I think we're gonna start selling things into film and TV. I said, oh, that's great. Have you done that before? And she said, no. And I said, oh, okay. That's fantastic. I would assert that you want to find somebody who has done that before. If the person who is representing you in film and TV has not done it before, that's fine, but then find someone who is an entertainment attorney who has looked at those agreements before and have them look at whatever that person has negotiated. Because you don't want to leave any elements on the table that you could get in that film and TV space. So these are things to look for. Is there a term limit? What is the reversion like? And do you have a right to terminate? I don't know. I always like for everybody to have an exit route. You know how when they do that on the plane, they're like, look for your exits? I feel like that with agreements. What is your exit route? So selling your rights, I talked about that a little bit. Beware the rights grab. This is kind of what this entire presentation is about. I'm realizing is that I'm really concerned that perhaps you're conveying rights that you don't know you've conveyed, and then you put yourself in a corner, and nobody does that to baby. So, small gaming companies who ask for film and TV, audiobook companies asking for film and TV. There's a lot of film and TV here, right? Film and TV asking for podcasts because they try. Perpetuity with exceptions. That's a case-by-case basis, my friends. Rights management is part of your author business because you want to take this and turn it into that. All right, so here is me, and I don't know how much time we have left.
15.
Oh, good. So we can take questions, and I'm happy to I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about this or any other matter. I don't like to tell people my weight, but other than that, although I will if pushed. Yes.
Hi. In the space between, I guess, post-interest and pre-signing of the contract, can you provide a couple of different scenarios where you would want to pay for the rights versus hiring an entertainment lawyer versus maybe looking for representation from an agency that has a film agent?
Okay. So basically, let me walk through it hypothetically, and then you can tell me if I'm even close. So if someone reaches out to you and says, "Hey, I like these. Are they available? Are the film and TV rights available?" Absolutely, answer that question. They're available or they're not available. Okay, great. They may say, "Could you send me a PDF of the book?" That's totally up to you. If you're comfortable with that, yeah. If not, then say, "Oh no, you can get it here." However you want to do it. So then they come back to you and they say, "You know what? We would like to option your book," and then they send you a document. If they send you a document, then I would, and you're talking about film and TV rights, it would be my recommendation that you may want to have someone review that document. And it's simply, so I saw an agreement recently, which is similar to the one I talked about before, where there was a document conveyed to an author that had a clause I had never seen before that said any of the development materials that are created during the option period will be considered individual and copyrightable works, and then the producer can then exploit and will own those copyrightable works. No. Dead stop, do not go, do not enter, all of that. We took that out, we got that taken out, but I'd never seen anything like that. That sounded a little crazy train to me. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, and then like, in what scenario would you recommend actually going and searching for, some kind of longer representation with it, maybe a literary agency that has a film and TV rights agent?
Whenever you can find one. Oftentimes that comes hand in hand with getting an offer,
Okay.
if I'm really honest about it.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, so I represent a fantasy author named Will White, and we've sold 2 million books in the last 3 years. And so we have options for some of the TV and film rights, but my question is we're working on trying to find an entertainment lawyer. And we worked for a while, we've met some agents before, and it's one of those things, I feel like it's like finding a therapist. You have to find someone who's the right fit, and you think you have an agreement, and you get something in writing, and you're like, this is not at all what we talked about. So I just kind of wanted your advice on how would you recommend someone finding the right entertainment lawyer for you? Or how do you find somebody that you think you can trust, and are you really trying to look for somebody who is a long-term partner, or are you looking for something on a case-by-case basis? So I just wanted your advice.
Yeah, so I can think of no better entertainment attorney in the world
Then
No.
you should.
I really just wanted to laugh, you guys. Really put myself out on a limb there. No, to be quite honest, it really is the business model of the individual author, right? So some authors that I work with, they do want that longer relationship, and some authors that I work with really are happy to do it on a case-by-case basis. I have to tell you that a good attorney, regardless of the area of law, understands that you are their employer and you are their taskmaster, for using a better word. They work at your behest. Right? And the same with agents, and I think that's one of the things that is really easy to forget as an author, because you search so long for that you feel so, a lot of authors feel very grateful when they found the right fit, but it really is those people work for you, right? The option agreements that you've entered into, well, and here's the thing is that there are lots of entertainment attorneys. I would kind of do a search, and then I would interview them, because when I speak to new clients, I will often say to them, I'm sure you're interviewing other attorneys, so here's what I'm about. Please let me know if I can be helpful. So,
Thank you so much.
yeah, of course.
Hi again, Maggie.
Hi.
You mentioned last time I
It's
spoke
really
with
hard
you.
for me not to come cry out of your chair. And then kiss it.
You mentioned last time we spoke was that you're an entertainment lawyer, but that you all do kind of represent people in a kind of hybrid
Occasionally, yeah.
format.
We'll try to set things up.
Yeah. So is that only for film and TV rights? Do you do rights in any other category? Or
It's
is
an
it
interesting
just film and
question.
TV?
So I don't go to the big book fairs internationally, so I don't sell foreign rights to foreign territories. But what we do as a firm is that oftentimes the agents that will get the deal memo will come in, and then my clients will pivot and ask me to redline and review it. So I see all of those agreements, and I know what the market, thank you, I know what the market will bear, and I'm happy to negotiate them, but I'm not going to like Frankfurt Book Fair. Right.
So in theory, if I had, say, an agent for all my ancillary rights, let's just say I found one who worked for all of them, let's just say.
Yeah.
And then there was an opportunity for a deal and we needed an entertainment lawyer, I would be like, okay, hey Maggie, like, will you work with my agent to get this done? Would you two be
I would be
working together?
grateful to do
Well,
that. I would be grateful.
Would it be you two working together, or would you then take the flag at that point and do all the legal stuff once the agent found the actual person who wanted to buy it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Different agents want to handle things differently, right? Like I have agents that I've done a lot of deals with that are just like, okay, so just redline it, mark it up, negotiate it, send it back, CC me, and let me know when those dance steps are done. And then I've had other agents who are a little bit want more control over the process, and so I will redline it, mark it up, do all that. Reach out to the agent and say, hey, I'm ready to convey this back to the other side. Do you want me to convey it? Do you want to convey it? What is the best case scenario for you? And at the same time, hopefully, knock on wood, you're communicating with your client, because your client is your boss, right? And you're saying, okay, this is where we are in the process. This is what we're going to send back. And the third thing is that while the legal mumbo jumbo is being negotiated, there's this thing, and you might have heard me say this, where attorneys will say reserving all rights until signature, which is a term of art saying, I have the right as the attorney for this individual to negotiate on their behalf, but I reserve on their behalf all the rights with regards to this agreement up until the time they sign it, which then allows you don't have to read every pass. So when we get to where the other side is like, look, Maggie, you've really drug us over the coals on this, and we are done with you. When we get to that part, then I pivot, and I send it to you, and I say, this is as far as they're going to go. Here are the elements that have been changed. Here are the things I like about that. Here are the things that still give me pause. Can we set up a Zoom or a call so that you can give me feedback? I can answer questions. You know, some clients are just like, I don't care. Is it as good as it's going to get? Yes, it's as good as I think it's going to get. Okay, just send me and I'll sign. And other people want to go through it step by step.
So it sounds like, for my other question, you just do the film, you don't do like audio and merchandising and... So
We
you
do all
of
that.
those?
Yeah,
Okay, you
we do all the deals. But like I said, I'm not out there
You're not the agent
selling
looking
for translations or foreign rights.
Yeah.
For sure. But I do reach out on behalf of some clients with regards to audio, and for some reason I've developed a really good relationship with one of the Italian publishers. So there are like these little pockets where I'm happy to reach out if a client says to me.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
That answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Maggie.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Hi.
Hi. Back in the day when I was naive and stupid, I developed a transmedia story world that was produced into a transmedia DVD experience by a nonprofit organization, like a real product. So I have the copyright on all the written material, and the nonprofit has the copyright on the DVD, and we have no written agreement. So my question to you is, what, if I wanted to develop that into a novel series, what rights might I have conveyed to them by allowing them to make that DVD out of my work?
That's a really interesting question, and one that should appear on a law exam. So, it's a not-for-profit. What was the original work a book? Was it based on, you said trans?
It was scripted entertainment primarily.
One script, 5 scripts?
It was a story world concept and 4 scripts.
Okay, so what form did that concept take? Was it like a 1 sheet and 4 scripts? What did you send to them? What did you create? What was the first thing you created?
I created the scripts
Okay.
and the story world content.
Did they ever purchase the scripts?
No.
Did they ever send you any money?
Nope.
You just said to them, you guys can make this?
Well, I was collaborating in it.
Right.
It was one of those.
Who were you collaborating with?
Stupid
No, it's not stupid. No, who were you collaborating with and what were they doing?
The individuals that are part of the nonprofit. So we co-produced it. I directed some of the pieces. Another individual directed other pieces. My co-producer did the editing, and then we had an entourage of actors who participated in it.
So the thing but you wrote the scripts by yourself?
Yep.
Oh, I've got 4 minutes, I'm sorry. Okay, so you wrote the scripts by yourself. This is really interesting. They filmed it, created this entity. I mean, I would assert that as the creator of the underlying script that you own everything that they didn't make, which would include the novelization. I think that for clarity around those rights, because here's where my mind goes. So say you write a series of novels based on the scripts that you wrote, and you've got this outlier DVD, and then Netflix comes calling. And Netflix says, we would like to give you this barrel of money, and George Clooney is going to star in your series. And then they say, oh, but there's this little chain of title issue, because there's this outlier performance sort of thing. So you might want to send a letter or an email saying, hi guys, I want to write novels or you could just write the novels. I want to make clear the chain of title. You know, I want to make sure that you understand that the only thing that you have a copyright for is this thing that you created over here.
I'm pretty sure they understand that, but we don't have a written agreement.
Right, so you may not need to do it now, but you might need to do it when Netflix comes calling, because here's the thing. When George Clooney and the big bag of money arrive, and you pivot to the not-for-profit, they may take a different stance than they take right now.
Yeah.
Just
So be proactive.
so you might want to have a conversation with them now and say, hi, I just want to make sure that we're clear and that you have a license with regards to what you've created, and you could even very graciously say, with regards to what you've created, you may have a limited license in perpetuity, because that allows them to keep that up for forever. The limited part may allow you to revoke it at some point.
Thank you.
Yeah, not legal advice, just just thoughts. Yes, I
This
think
is
that
not
might be the last question. I think we're running out of time.
And this is not actually rights related,
Yeah.
but it is legal. I heard someone say.
No, it's not legal.
Legal related. I heard someone say earlier in the conference that regarding like trust and getting contracts of people like editors,
Oh,
photographers.
trust. I thought you
things
meant
like
like a state law
No.
trust. I'm like, oh, we're gonna go to state law. Okay.
No, just
Yeah.
like the issue of trust and whether or not, like an editor would sign a agreement saying that your content is all yours and blah, 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 right? Is there an easy place for us to find contract language that is, free or inexpensive, that is for things that are simple, like our editors not stealing our work?
I am sure there is, and I don't know where.
Okay.
No.
Do you have any suggestions of where to start?
Would Nolo have that?
No, Nolo.
Nolo?
Nolo?
Yeah, Nolo.
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 There you go, there's your answer.
Fun to say.
Nolo.
Thank you.
I think we have like 1 minute. Anybody else? Yeah. I think you have to use the microphone though.
There's often, so let's say for KDP or ACX, they have a standard Boilermaker
Yes.
contract.
They do.
So there's not much negotiation that goes
Not a
on
lot.
with signing that.
Occasionally, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically,
Not that I would know.
so really with these standard contracts, basically we really want to participate in that platform, we basically have to agree to it. Is that right?
Yes, but I am the person who's read those agreements, and I know that they change them very often, so do not rely on this necessarily. But the thing about KDP is that, correct me if I'm wrong, you can take your books down whenever you want,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
It's 90 days.
That's only in KU, but you can take your books down. Like, they're your books, and you can take them down. And I don't think that they take any sort of, they're acting as a distributor. Now you're agreeing to allow them to distribute. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I just came across this, I was looking at the ACX contract and it says, oh, here's
Yeah,
a
it's a
standard
little
contract.
different.
It says, okay, what
There's
am I
some
gonna do?
language in there with regards, isn't there, there's still some language about 7 years if you do like a royalty share?
Yeah.
I would assert that if you can do it, it makes sense to own every one of those branches and exploit them yourself. I know that that's a big swing capital-wise as far as investments, but over the long run, you're gonna come out, it's like using a credit card versus paying with cash. Over the long run, you're gonna come out better by owning the things, like owning your translation, owning your audiobook, owning all of that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I enjoyed your presentation today.
Thank you.